I feel super sad because I'm going to share a story with you guys about the first time that I climbed a climb called the Sorcerer. And one of the most magical things about this climb was the environment and the setting and the backdrop. Unfortunately, there was a huge fire that came through the Ghost and basically burned down this obviously huge forest that's right by the Sorcerer. So I'll share in this episode today kind of, the story of how when I first climbed it and how beautiful it was and the environment and how surreal it was. And now that the forest is gone, it's not quite the same, although it's a pretty awesome climb. What is up, guys? For those of you new to the channel, my name is Philip Setter. I'm an avid ice climber, rock climber, and backcountry skier from Canada. I'm also an insurance broker who specializes in insuring those individuals. If that sounds interesting, I'll put a link in the description. But without further ado, let's just get into today's episode. Okay, I think I've talked about this so many times before in other episodes, but I'm going to talk about it again. If you're not familiar with the Ghost is the coolest place, in my opinion, in the Canadian Rockies. And maybe I shouldn't share it with you guys because one of the reasons why it's so cool is because it's like so isolated and not a lot of people go there and not a lot of people know about it. However, I want to share it with you guys because it's like one of my favorite places and I think it's so beautiful. I think everyone should at least experience it, but maybe let's not turn it into like a Johnston Canyon. Let's kind of still keep it wild and still keep it awesome. But you guys should definitely experience it if you haven't. So the Ghost is this region out by Cypress, past, in between like Banff or I guess Canmore and back behind Mount Yamaneska. It connects with Lake Minnewanka, which I guess is in Banff as well. So anyways, it's nestled in this region that you have to essentially drive down this like crazy bumpy dirt road that's like kind of off-roady, especially in the winter. It's like a full-on adventure to get in there. And once you drive past this road, you'll go down into a riverbed. And in this riverbed, you basically have two options. You could go left and you go to the South Ghost, which is typically where the driving conditions are a lot easier. And most of the time, if you have like a semi-decent type of like SUV and winter tires, you should make it there. But then the other side, in the riverbed, if you go right, you go to the North Ghost. And the North Ghost is like the gnarly driving conditions where you have to like have river crossings and break through ice shelves. And like, this is where the nightmare off-roading stories come from. And if you ever heard any stories about people getting stranded in the Ghost and like their Jeep is stuck in the river and it's like frozen in place for eternity, this is the direction that you need to go. Now, yeah, I mean, it's wild getting back there. And before I had ever gone back there, because I'd never gone back there because I didn't have like a super off-road vehicle. So me and my friends would always just go into the South Coast, which is awesome. I mean, there's tons of good climbs there. Malignant Mushroom, Wicked Wanda, Rainbow Serpent. There's still a ton of really good climbs there, but in the North Coast, there's like also a ton of awesome climbs. And it's just a really cool environment because you're in this place where you feel like there's not very many people who can get there because of the driving conditions. And you're always kind of like a little bit on edge. You're like, are we going to get out? Can we make it past that river? Like, how is it going to go? Like, are we going to get out of the snow? So, excuse me. So when we went to go do Sorcerer, me and my buddy Ryan Keane. Now, Ryan's got this sick off-road vehicle because Ryan actually likes off-roading. Like, I off-road to get to the ice climb. Ryan off-roads to off-road. Like, he just likes to off-road. And he's got this sweet, 97 or 98 Cherokee lifted, 6-inch lift with 35-inch tires. And he's got the winch and he's got all the off-roading stuff. He actually just really likes off-roading. And I don't know a lot about vehicles, but he re-geared his I don't know what you re-gear, I don't know how it works. Do you re-gear your transmission or your engine? I don't know how it works, but he basically re-geared it. So there's a shitload of power still, because when you get bigger tires, but you have the same amount of power, it's working a lot harder to try and turn those. But then when you re-gear it, you have, a lot of power, especially at low RPMs, which is what he did. So you just have so much more power to cut through the snow. And so, I always beg Ryan, please, can we go out and go to the Ghost? because his vehicle is like so awesome and it always gets there. So when we went out, we met in Calgary. He picked me up, and this was actually like one of the first times that we went climbing together. I think it might have been the first. Actually, I don't know. That's a good question. I can't even remember what our first climb was together. But like we had known each other and maybe done one other thing before. But this was definitely one, like in the first 5. So we're still getting to know each other. And now he's like one of my closest climbing partners when he actually decides to come out climbing. But anyways, yes, we met. We're driving out, and it's full on winter in the Ghost. It had been snowing for like days. There was so much snow. And he's just like, the thing with like the vehicles like that, they can just go into like deep powder, and then they just like kind of float on top of the snow because it's just like, and you're just cutting through the snow. And so anyways, we get there. And I had never been in the North. This was my first time in the North Ghost. And I was like, this is wild. We're crossing rivers. We're going over like huge rocks. We're like going over these massive ice shelves. I'm like, this is fucking wild. Like, I'm terrified because I'm like, how are we going to get back? Like, and I don't know what his vehicle is capable of. And I didn't know a lot about off-roading in the North Ghost at that point. So anyways, we get in, we park as close as we can, and we're just like, he's just spinning around, having fun in the snow. We park, and then we go and we're walking up this road. We got our snowshoes on, and you're basically just in the middle of this huge forest. And that's what's so beautiful. And that's, what I'm so sad that isn't there anymore, because it's such a surreal moment. So you basically go on this road for a little while, maybe like an hour or something like that, maybe 45 minutes. And then you turn left and you go through this forest. And you're walking through this forest, and you're just walking through this forest. And then you come out of the clearing of this beautiful forest that you just walked through. And then there's just this like massive like ice climb just situated on the side of this ice bluff, or this rock bluff, pardon me. And you're just like, what? Like, that's what we're climbing? Because it's huge. Like, the Sorcerer is a massive climb. I think it's like 300 meters in total. A lot of that is like WI3, WI4, but there is like a solid 2 pitches of WI5. Like, do not take this like lightly. Do not take it for granted. It is like, it's still serious climbing, and there's a lot of it. There's like at least 140 meters of WI5, depending on how the conditions come in. And so that's kind of your first time seeing it, is like, you haven't seen anything. You've like driven into the heart of the Ghost, which is like this wild area. There's no cell phone reception. No one's out there. If you get stuck, like, no one's going to help you. It's up to you. If you're stuck, like, you better hope someone comes out later in the day. They might come out, they might not. And then, like, again, there's no cell phone reception. Like, you better hope your InReach works. And who are you going to call? Like, how are they going to get you? You have to like have people in your contacts list who also have off-road rigs that are also capable of getting there. So it's just this like, it's this wild place that like, it's up to you. You're like, treat it like you're on your own. There's no help. It's not like you're going to watch another hiker walk by and be like, hey, help me. Like, you're not going to wait for a car to, like, that doesn't happen. Like, maybe there's other people that are going to come out there, but maybe not. Like, it's totally up to chance. There might be an off-road crew that decides to come in. There might not be. So it's just this fucking cool area where you're just like, you have your own wits and your own abilities, and it's up to you at the end of the day to get in, have an adventure, and then safely get out. And so, now that you drove 2.5 hours and you're in the middle of nowhere, then you hiked another 2 hours and you go through this forest, and then all of a sudden you see this massive, imposing waterfall of like 300 meters. And you're looking at that and you're like, oh my God, I'm in the middle of a forest, in the middle of nowhere. No one's around me. Like, there's not another soul for 10 kilometers. It's like -10, -20. And we're going to climb this highly technical waterfall, just the two of us. And if anything goes wrong, it's like, it's just us. Like, it's just crazy. It's a crazy environment. And it's just like, I don't know. It's so cool. And all of a sudden, it's just like, the isolation hits you and the difficulty hits you, and like, how long it is hits you. And it's like, whoa, this is going to be a big day. And so anyway, so we got down and we started out. So yeah, so basically I can't remember how we split the pitches up. I think I did the first pitch, which goes at like, so okay, so you get there, you gear up and everything. The first pitch is like, I think it's like a full like 70 meters of WI3, maybe even WI3 plus, maybe even a section of WI4. I think Ryan led that. And then the next pitch, which is like a snow climb up to like maybe WI3, WI4, I led that one. And then so now we're at like 140, 120 meters off the ground. And then the next one is like you get onto this like pillar and you climb up. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that now. So I got up to that, built an anchor, and then Ryan came up. He started up that, and you basically go like a full 60, 65 meters up into this cave on the right. And then, right on the left is the final pitch. And you kind of go up like another like kind of curtain, steep WI5 ice, sometimes WI5 plus, depending on the condition. So I went and got up to the cave. So we're 3 pitches in now. And it's just like this wild environment. There's just like, I don't know, it's so cool up there. And then, and then the final pitch is like, okay, we're getting into it. And so I led the final pitch, which is, quote unquote, I guess the crux pitch, but I think they're very similar in difficulty between the third pitch and the fourth pitch. And then I led that, and you get to the top and you basically just like run the rope out until you get to like WI3 terrain. And that's the top of the climb. But it's just like, I don't know, it's such a cool climb. It's just such a beautiful backdrop. Beautiful location, and just the isolation of it just makes it's like, it would be different if you're like in Banff, and you go to Banff and you're climbing and, it's like professors or something like that. Like, if anything goes wrong, it's just like, oh, you just, you're right there in Banff, right? Like you'll be fine. Or if you're at like Cascade, for example, if anything happens on Cascade, Banff is right there. You have cell phone reception. There's lots of climbers. There's lots of hikers. It's a different feeling. You know what I mean? It's different when it's like, not only are you so alone in the middle of nowhere, but even the degree of difficulty to get where you are, most people cannot get there, right? Like you need the off-road vehicle, and then it's a 2-hour hike and all these things. So it's just like that extra feeling of isolation makes it just a really special climb. And so, yeah. So anyways, obviously to finish that day up, we came down, finished it up, which awesome day. That was one of our first climbs together. Awesome leads, by everyone. Brian had some awesome leads. And then we wrapped down and walked out in the dark, and then got back to the car, and then drove back. And it was like, that is so fucking cool. Like the ghost is so cool, and that climb is so cool. And then unfortunately, I think it was either that year, I think it was like the next summer, basically, a forest fire came through and burned everything about that. And so I've done it a couple of times since then. And basically now, so what happened was this tiny trail that we were on before, that you would walk up to get to it through the forest, the firefighting teams, I don't know what you would call it, the firefighters, basically, when they were fighting the fire, the firefighters, when they were fighting the fire, okay, they actually brought in like bulldozers and a bunch of other things and paved that road so they could transport equipment and I'm assuming manpower and other things to help fight this fire. And then that entire forest like burned to a crisp. There's nothing but like just black trees sticking up. Like that's it. Everything's gone. It's just black trees. So now to get to this climb, there's like a highway to get to it. You basically park and then you walk up like not a path, but like a full road that you could drive like a dump truck on this road, super wide. And you walk up it, and then now everything's burnt down. So you just look over and you see the climb on the left, and you're like, oh, there it is. It's right there. And it's just that kind of magic, of the whole place is gone. Because before it was like you were hiking for 2 hours in the wilderness, in the trees, in these snowy conditions, before you ever even got a glimpse of it. And now that the forest is gone and the road is there, it kind of just takes away a little bit of the wild nature of this climate. I've climbed it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times since then. And it's like, don't get me wrong, it's still an awesome climb, but that like the magic of it, I don't think is there anymore. Now it just feels like, yeah, awesome. Let's go do like this cool WI5, good mileage. The adventure of it and the beauty and the nature is not quite there anymore. So yeah, I wanted to share, the original story of climbing it because I do think it was like a really magical place. Not that it isn't anymore. It's just it doesn't have the quite the same feeling. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you not only let me know if you climbed it now versus let me know if you climbed it before when it was still a forest and it didn't burn down and what your experience was. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and I'll see you guys in the next one.